All right, everyone, apologies for being 45 minutes late tonight. It's been a busy night already, but appreciate everybody's patience. We're going to go ahead and get started. I think our other board members are on their way here, but we've got a quorum, so we'll go ahead and start some of our votes here. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
Second.
Ms. Bond and Dr. Guitry. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
4 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Guitry and Ms. Bond. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Return to open session, or certification of closed session, sorry. Yes. Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton? Yes. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, do I have a motion to expel student A?
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Bond. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Abstain.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to expel student B?
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Bond. Any discussion?
Yeah, just for clarity, abstaining from A and B are due to me not being able to be present for those.
Thanks. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Abstain.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Abstain.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
5 in favor, 2 abstain.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to long-term suspend student C until the end of the year with recommendation for alternative placement?
So moved.
Ms. Purcell and Ms. Franklin. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll when you're ready.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right. So moving on to our honors, awards, and recognitions portion of our meeting tonight. Mr. Mark Husband, our Director of CTE and Virtual Learning, along with CTE teachers, will recognize students who won state-level events in career and technical student organization competitions during the 2023-24 school year.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Bragan. Thank you for providing us another opportunity to recognize outstanding MCPS students. Today we are recognizing students who won state-level career and technical student organization competitions, also known as CTSOs. CTSOs are a co-curricular network of programs, business and community partnerships, and leadership experiences at the school, state, and national level. Students enrolled in career and technical education courses are members of the local CTSO related to their courses and area of interest. Students are provided with opportunities to compete in academic, technical, and employability knowledge and skill competitions. Virginia CTE students are served through 8 different CTSOs, and MCPS competes in all 8 of those CTSOs offered in Virginia. Tonight, we will recognize students who won state championships during the 2023-2024 school year in FFA, Skills USA, and FBLA. First up is the Auburn High School FFA program and their teacher, Kim Smith.
It's my pleasure to stand before you all this evening and share my horse girls with you. So I'll invite the two who are able to be here this evening, Nora Wade and Piper Boyke, to join me, please. Casey Rosenbaum and Katie Light are currently playing soccer, so they were not able to be here. These four young ladies actually won 2 state championships. They won the horse judging competition as well as the hippology competition. In horse judging, they evaluate horses being ridden and in hand, and then they have to defend their placings with a verbal report to a judge called reasons. This is very intimidating for many high school students, so I'm very proud of them for being able to do that. Hippology is a contest in horse knowledge. So they actually made history. No one has ever won both of those contests in the same year with the same students in Virginia before. So this was a huge accomplishment. We're very proud of them. They worked very hard and went on to represent Virginia in the national competition at the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, where there were 48 teams that competed from all across the nation. It was a very highly sought after competition, and we received a silver rating. I'd also like to say of note, Nora Wade, this is Nora. She was the high individual. She won the hippology contest this year, and she actually won the horse judging contest the year before. So if you guys could join me in congratulating.
Our next teacher is Mr. Jay Mathis to present Skills USA students in cybersecurity competitions.
Good evening, Dr. Bragan, members of the board. I'm Jay Mathis. I teach cybersecurity and computer programming, Blacksburg High School. Also one of the sponsors for our Skills USA program there at the high school. We have a really great program, a lot of great competition this year. But I got these two young men up here with me. We're going to make it quick because they're both on work release right now, so they're going to have to get back, and we'll talk about that later with them. But right before you here is Tyler Rasick to my right and Gabriel Mendoza to my left. These two gentlemen won our first Skills USA state competition in cybersecurity this past year. This competition is it's unique. It's 3 days, and when I say 3 days, these guys will tell you it is literally 72 hours of 15 teams from all across the state of Virginia grinding it out. We didn't sleep. We barely ate. They started on Thursday in the van going down to Virginia Beach, and they did not stop till Saturday afternoon when we figured out we had won. So these, if you're not familiar with a Capture the Flag cybersecurity competition is, it's a Jeopardy-style competition. There are different problems that the teams have to solve. Each problem is increasingly difficult, and as it gets more difficult, it becomes worth more points. So the more advanced problems you solve, the more points you get. And these two young men dug into that competition, and it was very clear to us by waking up on Saturday morning, well, me waking up, they didn't go to sleep, that we were going to pull this thing out, we were going to win. And it's the first ever time that we've got a state championship, and it was a 5-year goal for me with my program at Blacksburg High School to bring home a state championship, and these two young men did that for us. So great young men. Gabriel's going to be going to Virginia Tech to major in cybersecurity. Haven't won Tyler over yet. He's going to do mechanical engineering at Georgia Tech, but we're going to keep working on him. We've been back there getting into zero a little bit. But great young men right here, bright futures for both of them. Again, state championship cybersecurity with Skills USA. So. And I got one more for you this evening. Naisha, if you join me, please. Board, this is Naisha Hadait. She is unique in Skills USA at Blacksburg High School. She is our powerhouse. Not only has she been one of our school's officers, but she is also a 2-time state officer. You can come on up. We're in here. We're friends. She's a 2-time state officer. She just got reelected to state officership this past session in Virginia Beach, so we're real excited about that for her. She is also a state champion in prepared speech. She won that state championship this year, and if you know anything about that, very involved competition. It's not just something where you're standing up and giving a little note card thing for a couple minutes. She put a lot of work and effort into that. presentation skills, speaking skills, research. A lot goes into that prepared speech competition, and she pulled out that win. Also got reelected. She'll represent Blacksburg High School in the state of Virginia at the end of this month in Atlanta, Georgia, at the national convention down there. Real excited for her. Another really cool thing that you can see on the front page of our news messenger that's out this week, she is one of Montgomery County 21 Points of Light award recipients this year for her volunteer work that she's done in the community. So we're really excited for her with that too. But this is Naisha, state champion, prepared speech, and also two-time state officer for Skills USA. Thank you.
Our next two students unfortunately couldn't be with us here today. They graduated over the weekend and they are out of town celebrating. But I do want to recognize Kaylin Malabad, who won our advertising and design competition through Skills USA. Kaylin also won this competition in 2022. Making Kaylin a two-time state champion with teacher Kelly Showalter from Blacksburg High School. And then also at the competition for current events and state t-shirt design, Isabel Provette also was in classes with Miss Kelly Showalter. You may remember Isabella was recognized for winning a state competition with the DECA competition. So two different CTSOs, two different state championships for Isabella. So congratulations to both of those students. Our next teacher to present is our drafting teacher, Miss Veronica Spradlin from Blacksburg High School.
Good evening. I'm actually here as the drone teacher tonight. So I had a drone team go to state competition this year. BB to my left and Tommy couldn't be here tonight, but I just want to say that I'm really proud of these students. You know, I have a big drone team that does the big travel to Texas for that big team competition. And not all students have the ability to travel and participate at that level. So I was really excited to have a team in Skills USA that was able to travel with us. And BB has been so great being in my classes. She's taken multiple classes of mine from drafting, architectural, and the drones class. And when I made the comment that this was an option and it was a little bit smaller, it was in state, so you could go with us to the state competition. I said, you just need to find a partner. And so BB talked Tommy into doing it, and Tommy is a junior, and Tommy can come back next year and compete as well as a senior, so we can keep this competition going. But they had to do a question and answer portion, which is similar to the Part 107 exam that they have to take for my class to be a commercial drone operator. Then they also had to fly, operate, maneuver drones through different obstacle courses and challenges. So I was very proud of them for their efforts at this competition, placing first at state. Unfortunately, they won't be able to go to national in Atlanta, but they did well at state, and I'm proud of their performance.
Our final group of the evening is our largest group. I'd like to welcome Miss Lorraine Hedgepeth, who's a business teacher at Blacksburg Middle School. She has 10 different teams to recognize this evening.
All right, good evening. So good evening, Dr. Brigham and school board members. First, it's just an honor to be here. I love teaching at Blacksburg Middle School, and of course, I love FBLA. I'm here to recognize we had 23 students who placed in their event at our state convention in Richmond, Virginia. But of course, I'm here tonight to represent the first place winners. I would like to acknowledge Mr. Husband, our CT director, and our principal, Dr. Robert Johnson, who's also here. One back there. And I would also like to recognize our bookkeeper, Tammy Snodgrass, because there's a lot of paperwork and money involved in FBLA. And I would like to also acknowledge my colleagues and all the supporting parents who are here tonight with their children. I want to give them a hand. So first up, I would like to invite Cece Liu to come. So Cece is a sixth grader, and her project was community service. So our president of our FBLA, Sadie Zhang, we had a meeting in August, and we thought, well, what will we do this year? And Sadie brought a lot of research to our chapter and said, let's do something with feeding the hunger. And so I had to kind of find places that needed, volunteers to come. And so we found the Montgomery County Christmas store. So Cece, with a little encouragement from me and her mom, presented a presentation on the Montgomery County Christmas store. We went there and toured the store. We also had to volunteer. We had 17 members who came to volunteer, and we stacked food. We also made greeting cards. So it was a really, really good experience, and I'm sure Cece will look back on it. So we're going to nationals in the end of June in Orlando, Florida. She placed first. Yeah, you can go. Okay, next up we have Ray Hahn. So Ray. All right. So Ray is an eighth grader at Blacksburg Middle School, and Ray, her presentation was on career research. Ray has wanted to be a veterinarian, I say, since 5? Yeah. 5 years old. And she did a presentation about all the qualities and I guess you can say research to become a veterinarian. And she had to present in front of judges, and she had to do this in a 7-minute presentation. And of course, she won first place, and now she can go to nationals, but she's going to go back to China because she wants to be for her grandparents. But I'm really proud of her, and she's been really instrumental in our FBLA chapter of Blacksburg Middle School. Next up, I would like to invite Elijah Arnab, I can pronounce this right. So Elijah did his presentation on elevator speech. He had to do a 3-minute presentation. I have to say I'm really proud of Elijah because we started off a little shaky there, but then he got better. He was confident. And one of the things he had to do was to present to the judges in 3 minutes why we needed more public funding for FBLA. And I thought that was great. So in his presentation, he talked about how we could do other things, and definitely we wouldn't have to fundraise. And as you can see, he doesn't have on his T-shirt, but we had to raise money to buy our T-shirts, get sponsors. So it was really good. And he, according to the judges, did an excellent job. He's a 7th grader, rising 8th grader. Let's see, I had a lot to talk about that one. All right, next up is Amet Dogan. Amet's a 7th grader at Blacksburg Middle School. He's wearing our T-shirt. Yes. I'm really impressed with Amet's presentation because his is called Exploring Business Issues. And Amet, he did a phenomenal job. I really don't help these students. They're one of my sons asked me, he said, Mom, are you just really that good of an FBLA advisor, or they're just excellent students? And I said, they're excellent students. I take no credit for it, just to mentor them, help them to get to do their very best when they present. Well, Met has to do a presentation on, I have to read this one, the traditional work environment is changing as technology provides employees with the ability to work from anywhere, including their home. Employees are looking to push companies to break down long-established structures and policies that traditionally have influenced workdays. And he had to present his presentation on how this positively and negatively affected the working environment. And he had to create graphs and prove his point. And he had to also do that in 7 minutes as well. So it was really, really good. They're just happy that they don't have to talk. All right, my next 2 fun students are Emma Harrison and Grace Flathammer. They're wonderful. They did theirs on marketing mix. I'm thirsty. All right, so this is Emma Harrison. This is Grace Gladhammer. And Emma is a sixth grader and Grace is a seventh grader. And I don't know, did y'all know each other through sports? So they knew each other through sports. And so they decided to have to create a product that doesn't currently exist, and they have to sell this to the judges. And I have to say, and brag on them, they had 100 points on their whole judging from 2 judges. They got a total of 100 points from each judge. Their product was a subscription box for autism, and they call their product April. And April stands for Autism, Persistence, Revolutionize, Infinity, and Love. And then they had to present on the 5 Ps of marketing, which is, of course, product, place, price, promotion, and people. And they did a really great job, and they also going to nationals to hopefully do really well there. Okay. Next up are my outstanding 8th graders who are officers in FBLA. Sadie Zane, Grace Lee, and Sophie Zane. And I forgot to say, Grace is also an officer. I need water. Okay. So this is Sophie, this is Grace, and this is Sadie, our president. All right, so they had to create a multimedia website development. Sadie developed the website from HTML. She did not use Google Sites. She did not need my help. She did this all by herself. They had to pick a small business in our community to help promote their business. And I'm not really sure how they found out, but Carol Lee Donuts, which all of us love, does not have a website right now. And I have been trying to get in contact with them just, to let them know that they have a great website developer right here if they want to use her. And so their product is, as long as it's not public, we can do this. So I don't want anybody to think we're trying to steal their business or anything. But they had to have it interactive. It has to allow for them to order fictitiously. They had to have a homepage. They had to have some kind of reward program on their website. And it's really, really great, and I wish I could show it to you guys, but they developed this all by themselves. Grace did some videos, like the history. Sophie also did some creativity with putting the information on the page. It's a group effort, it's a team effort. And this is their 3rd year in FBLA, and I'm really proud of them. Without their officer leadership, our chapter would not be what it is today. All right. Okay, so now I'd like to bring up a 7th grader, an outstanding 7th grader, Theta Back. If you haven't heard about Theta, Theta is also does math counts. But Theta is also in FBLA. And Theta won 2 events. She won Exploring Computer Science, and she won it last year too. And she had to come up with, she had to take an objective test. It was a 30-minute test with 50 questions. And Theta, some of the questions were about problem solving, algorithms. She had to do, I had loops, logical reasoning, and I don't know what her score was, but this is her 2nd year placing first there. Also, Theta placed first in financial literacy. And last year, Theta was a national winner for the video game challenge. So she placed first, out of 38 states and some other countries. And I really enjoy having Theta as part of our FBLA chapter. And if you ever get to go to these conferences, I heard one of the other teachers say it, it's just really exciting. It's more than just competition. You go to workshops and all kinds of things, and I think the students really enjoy that. All right, Scarlett Collins is not here, but I would like to acknowledge her. She's a first place winner for interpersonal communications, which I'm sure as school board members, all of you have to do a lot, which is of course, aims to learn about how to communicate between people. She also had to take a lot of, a 30-minute test with 50 questions, and she placed first also. Last but not least, I would like to bring up my 3 8th grade students. That's Dennis Zhao, Samuel Shen, and Shivan Thakar. All right. They're very quiet. All right, so this is Sam in the gray shirt, and this is Dennis, and this is Sheevan. So they created a video game challenge presentation as well. They placed first, and their program was a monkey jump program where the monkey had to jump over different things. It has to be a game that's interactive, that you use your keyboard, and I was really surprised and just happy for them because, you know, with competition, when you're competing against other middle schools in the state, and then they got first, I think they were just as happy as I was, right? Hopefully. And it was a really honor just to be there to see them place first. Thank you guys for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you all for coming out tonight. I love that we honor our students in this way, and I love that it's not just athletics. We're extending it out to the trades and the academics and all the good stuff. So it's great stuff. Great. Our next item is the public hearing for the operating budget. So school board will now receive a public comment on the proposed 2024-25 operating budget and the proposed school nutrition budget. Looking at the sign-up sheet. No one signed up. So with that being said, the public hearing for the operating budget is closed. Next up is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in the community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start a public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Osborne will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers get to address the board. Call each speaker up by name in the order that they are signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during the public address. Screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and time is up. And I said all that and we don't have anybody signed up. So, hey. All right, great. And with that, a public address is closed. All right, next up is our consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider these items approved. Okay, great. Next up are the financial reports. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented? Second. Ms. Bond and Ms. Franklin. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, and that takes us to our business meeting, and first up is the report from the superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Hudson. I only have a few things. The first is congratulations to Lisa Green from Kipps Elementary School on being selected by the Virginia Association for the Gifted as our region's outstanding Teacher of the Gifted for 23-24. Congratulations to her. I also want to report that yesterday we had the election and the votes were tallied for our classified staff who voted, and they did so overwhelmingly in favor of the MCA representing them in collective bargaining, in getting a collective bargaining agreement. So the next steps for that we will focus on, similar to what we did for our teaching and professionals, is there will be a meeting and to discuss which of the items from the collective bargaining resolution, I think there was 4, which of the 2 that they want to collectively bargain, and then we'll start going down that road, and I will keep the board abreast of that as we move forward. I want to let everyone know the survey regarding my performance as superintendent is open until Monday the 27th. So if you haven't given back me your feedback, please do so between now and then. I really do look forward to seeing those comments and helping to refine what I do in leading this division to better serve our community. So please take the time to do that. It will make us better, and it will make me better as your leader as well. And the last thing I have is our capital plan update for the schools that we were looking at potentially doing renovations for, the elementary schools in Blacksburg, Margaret Beeks Elementary, Gilbert Linkus Elementary, Harding Avenue Elementary School, Montgomery Central, and the Charlottesville Middle School. We reviewed all the information that we got from the community feedback. I went over with the architect. I met with him one time already. And the architect has visited the schools and walked the schools and kind of got a rough idea. They're going to go back in the next week or two and delve deeper into what that would look like and what those potential projects may or may not entail. And then looking for somewhere in mid-June to come back with recommendations as far as what those renovations will look like, what their potential costs will be. I will share them with the school board and then get your feedback and whatever adjustments we make there, and then bring them to the Board of Supervisors. At this point, Chair Hudson, that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Dr. Bragan. Next up is the organizational chart. The administration will present an updated Montgomery County Public Schools organizational chart for review and approval.
I asked Ms. Osborne to put it on the screen there. It's kind of hard to see, but we put all those, tried to get all those boxes on one sheet of paper. Was really difficult. This was shared with the school board previously, and the idea here was to somewhat flatten the organization and move those hierarchical structures where we kept things operationally separate, whether you were dealing with operations and facilities or curriculum and instruction, and trying to have a more flat organization where everybody kind of reports up to one line of command. It's hard to see there because we kind of squeeze it all into one page. But one of the things that's worthy of note there too, there are two positions that are added, and forgive me for the terminology because I wanted to put a placeholder, but I don't know if these will be the exact terms. One is a director of student discipline, and that kind of has a negative connotation because we want that position to be more proactive in working with some of our students that have difficulty and get in trouble on more of a regular basis, and be proactive in working with our principals and administrators and coming up with ideas, strategies to get students more engaged in the educational process. So I don't know if that's the right term that we want to use moving forward, but I wanted to make sure it was on the org chart. That's a new position that we're adding to it that's not presently there. There's also another one that says Title IX Coordinator, and we want to have those services and make sure we do due diligence in providing that, that important service to our community and making sure we're well trained and we're adhering to all the federal and state guidelines regarding that. But I don't know if that's the perfect name for it either. So at the next school board meeting, we're going to have job descriptions, and I'll take feedback from all of you if you want to reach out to me and share that with me, what those names maybe would better entail the duties that they would do. So that's the overall chart. If I'm open to questions or comments right now.
I have a question under the curriculum and instruction branches. There are directors and administrators for special subject areas. Where does the fine and performing arts fall in that? Who is helping those teachers meet their curricular needs? Especially, some are itinerant, so they're going to multiple schools.
It's a great question, and that's been brought up before. Right now, it falls under the elementary and secondary directors of curriculum, and then we have leads in each of the areas. But there has been conversations and a push for us to add a director of fine and performing arts moving forward. That may be something we want to look at. Right now, they have leads in each of those areas, and that falls under the elementary and secondary administrators, directors of curriculum right now.
Board, we can go around if there's additional comments. No, good. That's great. Awesome. Somebody's got to start. Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, so I'd like to, with the org chart, it's good to put this together. I'd also like to get a presentation at some point to the board associated with the responsibilities of each person at the director level and administrator level, so we understand what the details are of the organization's leadership does in our system. That's it for right now.
Okay. Ms. Franklin? Okay. Dr. Guidry? Okay. Ms. Parton?
No, no comments, no questions. Thank you, Dr. Bragan.
Ms. Bone? You good? All right, great. Yeah, I mean, I guess my advice would be for some of those positions that maybe you're still considering titles for, maybe look around some of the other districts that probably have similar positions and see if we can't find some example titles there that we like.
Awesome. I think some of the feedback too regarding the specific duties under each one, we should definitely do that, and we should probably look at all the job descriptions and make sure they're aligned and updated and appropriate. It's a good time to do that now. It's good feedback.
Great. All right, Board, are there any other comments? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the MCPS organizational chart as presented?
So moved.
Ms. Parton and Ms. Bond? Any further discussion?
Well, I do have some concerns about approving it right now without knowing, to Dr. Roundtree's comments, what exactly these folks are responsible for, and not having a real definitive title for the Director of Student Discipline.
Is there an urgency for us to approve it today or versus the next meeting?
I believe there is for the organizational structure as we have it now. I mean, we've been operating in a temporary capacity for a period of time, as you all are aware, and I think it's needed to now. And then at some point, as Ms. Franklin and others said, we could specifically define those positions. I wanted to have them as placeholders because that's where they would fit in the org chart. Kind of have a good idea of fleshing out what it is, but not specifically identified, and I think that will help us moving forward. But I don't, in my personal opinion, and it's just my opinion, I don't think we should not do this because of that now.
I think we can still have input into those titles and those roles and responsibilities as well. Like structurally, I'm not sure that would change how this might look. But it does have an impact on the budget, which we've had conversations about as well, right? So it's kind of a chicken before the egg, right? But we need to get our new structure in place so we can start operating under it. Any more discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
No.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. All right, next up, Helen Fotinos, our Administrator of Gifted Programs, will provide the 2023-24 Gifted Advisory Committee Annual Report for the school board's review. This is informational only, no action expected.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Bragan. My name is Jennifer McGee. I'm the instructional math coach at CHS and the chairperson of the GAC. It is my pleasure this evening to bring you the annual report from the GAC, review the recommendations, and share details of our upcoming work. Linked in the presentation is a copy of the annual report for your review. The recommendations from the GAC include shifting the timeline of work for the GAC to align with the MCPS budget cycle. Additionally, the GAC recommends encourage participation by all GRTs, teachers with clusters of gifted students, and administrators in targeted professional development around the understanding and instruction of gifted students. The GAC would like for the division to continue to use the HOPE rating scale, review data, and evaluate screening and identification processes to ensure the inclusion of all students in K through 12. The GAC also recommends aligning instructional supports to supplement English and math curricula to meet the needs of gifted learners. And as you know, both of those subjects will have new SOLs in the upcoming year. Additionally, the GAC supports the restoration of an additional GRT position which would support the goals of the early elementary gifted program. And finally, the GAC recommends the facilitation of partnerships between the Office of Equity and Diversity, others who are involved in family outreach, and the gifted department. A few notes of additional information. Due to the proposed shift in the GAC work calendar, the committee would like to begin our work on August 1st. Additionally, the GAC plans to submit the 2024-2025 membership list at the June 4th school board meeting for consideration and approval. And finally, the GAC would like to thank Dr. Bragan and each of you for the funding to reinstate the one gifted resource teacher position for the upcoming school year. This position will provide increased collaboration and additional time for co-planning and co-teaching, which are critical between GRTs and classroom teachers. Mrs. Fotinos and myself are available for any questions that you may have. Any questions?
Board, any questions from anyone? Anybody want to start?
Some folks may think it may be a little odd to recommend the partnership with the Director of Equity and Inclusion. So can you explain that one first?
We just want to make sure that as we're identifying gifted students, that we're being inclusive and we're having equitable practices for that. And so we'd like to partnership with all of those stakeholders to make sure that we're doing those things.
Okay, I got it. I just wanted to hear it. But thank you.
Board, any other questions or comments? You can go around if you want.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I'm very glad to see that we have a new line for GRT in this budget. I don't have any specific questions. Last year, I kind of liked the way that the report came to us, where the GAC had its recommendations, and there was a response from your office, so I could see the difference. Because right now, I can't see the difference between the program itself and what it's doing and the GAC's review. It's all kind of merged together, and there may have been shortcomings with that approach, but maybe I misunderstand the report.
Tosh, can we open like the link on slide maybe 3? And you can say, is that what you're looking for? And if not, I'm happy to provide.
There's an additional document, Dr. Guitry.
That, if you scroll down, sorry, Tosh, a little bit. You see the kind of like back and forth?
Yeah, this is right. I did look at this. So I looked at this and I was like, I can't tell the difference between the self-review of the program and the GAC's review of the program. It's kind of all merged together. And one of the things that I did like about the report before is that the GAC did its work somewhat independently. So you knew, like, here it's all folded together, so I can't see what's the program self-evaluation versus what the committee independent of the program has reviewed.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a funny year as we roll into writing our new gifted plan. So we kind of took everything we've done over the last 5 years and put it into one report. So a lot of that self-reflection
That's fine.
happened in years past. That's a sweet spot, isn't it? But that's really great feedback. I'm happy to provide more information for you if you want in the future.
Yeah, I just found that helpful. And some of it would just say objective is ongoing, like
Right.
wasn't particularly helpful in
Yeah,
wondering
absolutely.
how far you've advanced in those objectives. It was
Okay.
just like, this is all kind of ongoing
Sure.
work. So
Like more details to this, like I can go back and add more details to this report, or are you just saying in the future you would like more?
like me moving forward, I think it's fine. Yeah.
I think this year we've had really good luck with like lots of good dialogue and lots of agreement, which has been really positive for us. So.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
I have no questions, but thank you ladies so much for all the information and the hard work. It's really appreciated.
Thanks, Bowen. Ms. Purcell?
Yeah, I just have a question about the development of the class for middle schoolers. What's your vision for that, or is it too early for you to really know yet exactly what you're hoping to provide?
I am going to come back and give you a whole nother presentation on June 4th. So I can give you more information then. I will say currently we are developing an additional syllabus for Honors 7 and Honors 8 English. So that will take the English 7 or English 8 syllabus and then add an extra layer of rigor on top of that. That's part of our summer work, is to develop that. So in addition to meeting the regular standards, we are really upping our game to be able to call that an honors class. So that is what Honors English looks like. Right now we're kind of paused on what does like a gifted class look like, because of the conversation on changing scheduling for this current year. So it is on my to-do list, and I would love to talk with you more about what it could look like.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, so for the June meeting, you're bringing a membership to us, a recommended membership to us. What has been done for that recommended membership since last year in order to try to reach out to underrepresented communities on the committee? And how have you been successful with reaching out to those underrepresented communities on the gifted committee?
I'm thrilled to have people who volunteered to want to serve from the Eastmont and Auburn strands. Those are difficult strands for us to get parents to come to. It's hard to come to a meeting on a Tuesday night in Christiansburg when you live far away and you have a family. So I didn't have to twist anyone's arms. Our best sort of line of defense right now is our GRTs reaching out to those families and just saying, is anyone interested? Moving forward, I have a plan to be a lot more transparent, have open houses about what does the gifted identification process look like, what does it mean to be gifted, and I'm hopeful that moving forward and being more communicative to the community as a whole will allow me to recruit more folks to serve on the GAC, as well as our work with Stacy Wright on the Equity Committee, trying to do better, find ways to do better. I don't know how else to ask people to volunteer for something that's in an evening project, other than to just put it out to everyone and say, would anyone like to participate? I feel like post-COVID, we've had sort of a drop in volunteerism and people wanting to serve on committees. So if you have any suggestions on how I can do a better job, I am open to them. I'm at a loss as to how to get people to participate at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personal announcements at the school events,
Yeah.
going around and
Yeah.
making sure that people are asked to do it.
I'm working
personal invitations
Yeah,
are hard
yeah.
to turn down.
I got an email here while I was waiting from my Christiansburg teachers saying they had 3 parents that they had identified that they were ready to reach out to, and how did they want to proceed? And I was like, well, let's just call all of them and maybe one of them will say yes. I am working with some of my GRTs to try to build like a more informative website, to build some kind of either more informative interactive graphic or small video that we can share with communities in a way to just explain what the gifted program is. How does one qualify for gifted services? So again, just trying to be really transparent and open to the entire community about what it is that we do, so that everyone has an opportunity to ask questions and be involved.
Thanks.
Yep.
Board, any other questions or comments?
Can I just make a recommendation? Is there any reason why when you send out the annual letter of the individualized plans or the class-based plans that you might not put that information in with that letter so that every parent of a gifted child knows that there's a GAC? Would there be any reason not to let parents know using that communications tool?
Yeah. So we send it out in the first newsletter of the school year. Every GRT does a s'more newsletter, so it goes in that space. Maybe just trying to keep like education plans separate from volunteerism. Every new family into the program gets like a welcome letter with, please join the GAC. Here's what it is. Here's a link to the form to fill out. Here's a link to our website to explain it. So at the same time, I do recognize that we get inundated with emails all the time, and it's sometimes you don't read to the end. So again, just trying to think creatively about eye-catching graphics, quick little snippets with videos with cute children in them. Like, how can I do better to catch people's attention other than to send lengthy newsletters and emails that may or may not get read?
Thanks.
Okay, board, anything else? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time tonight. There's a pair of glasses up here at the podium. Is this maybe Ms. Hedgepeth's? Hi. Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Garrettson. All right, next up, the administration provided an update on budget planning for the 2024-25 operating budget. Informational only, no action expected? No, that's not right.
There's two things there.
Yeah, right, sorry.
There's
There's
the budget, the budget update, which is the detailed budget.
Roger.
Where the changes were made. If you go to the operating budget, that does need to be voted on. If you could pull that up. Sorry about that. Basically, as you all know, we met with the Board of Supervisors and we presented our budget to them. And when they put out their budget, they decide whether they're going to give us all the monies that we asked for or not. And they approved their budget and their tax rate a short while ago at 75 cents. And that included our budget, but the budget that they approved for the school division was reduced by a little over $900,000, $902,000 and 339 cents. So consequently, we had to find that money within our budget. And when you look at, excuse me, Tosh, pull up the other one. That's the detailed budget, right? Yes, thank you. Trying to just pull up the summary sheet. It's kind of small. If you can make it bigger. If not, put your glasses on. Anyway, those were the areas that we were increasing the budget, right? So we asked for a total, the initial budget was us $12,572,000, 306 cents. And when we reduced that by the $902,339, we had to take that money from somewhere. So if you looked at that chart there, that's where all the increases are and what we've increased, recommended increases for this year's budget coming up. So the idea was we didn't want to take away any of the personnel issues. We didn't want to take away any of the salary adjustments we were doing to correct some salaries that were wrong, to make some people go from 6 hours to 7.5 hours, the discussions that we had, to bring up some of our minimum salaries, which some were below $15 an hour. We wanted to make sure all of that was intact. We tried not to hit any of the health insurance cost increases because we think we need to fund that insurance reserve account, that $1.5 million, and we didn't want to pass that on to employees. So we looked at things, right? So the first thing we looked at was the inflation. We put it at 5%, and that was basically just over supplies across the entire division in every area. So if I was, working in, the business office at one of the high schools and my supplies was $10,000, we were going to just get it 5% more for inflation, which we didn't do any of that last year. So we cut that. We cut that by $300,000. So those supply amounts are still going up, but not by what the amount that we had put in at 5%. We then looked at the buses. We were going to buy 4 new school buses for a total of $572,000 approximately. We're reducing that by $250,000 because we believe at the end of the school year, we'll have some year-end monies that we can do a one-time purchase of the school buses, so we don't have to include that in the budget. So we'll still get those 4 new ones. If you remember, we're converting 4 electric ones, where we're getting totally new buses in their replacement. So that'll be the total of 8, which is what we asked for initially. If you go down further, the automated time system, we're working closely with our payroll staff, and they've been doing a great job. And we're working with ADP, and they have an online time solution that we could do for $75,000 as opposed to the $175,000. So we found $100,000 there as well. We increased utilities by $500,000 because it was underfunded, but we still think if we do reduce that to $400,000, we'll still have enough to cover all of our electric, gas, and water bills and so on. And the last thing we took some out, again, these are all increases, operational equipment and services. We had to find still $52,339, and we took it out of that amount. So we reduced our total increase in ask by the $902,339, and we think it's appropriate. I think we can accomplish all the things that we want to do and still be within what this Board of Supervisors has provided to us. And that's where we are. There's also, I don't have the final numbers from the calculation tool, but the governor did sign off on the revised budget, so we will get some additional monies in school state aid. It would increase this year in this current budget, but it's going to increase more. The Board of Supervisors did pass on their resolution when they went with the 75-cent rate, that monies that they would put aside for next year. So until they change that, that money will not be available for this budget. I open up to any questions or concerns.
Board, any questions? Anybody want to start? My apologies.
Okay, I'll start. So the information where the reductions were being made, didn't receive that until late last night, so I haven't had an opportunity to really filter through that. As far as the buses, I know I asked a question about that earlier in the year, and I thought it was only one bus that we were looking at, trying to do something back with, but there's 4. So we'll have 4 new buses, correct?
We'll actually have 8 new buses. We have 4 electric buses currently that don't really work. And when I mean work, that, we charge them and they run, but they don't hold charges long enough. They struggle in the mountains. They can't complete some of our longer runs. They really didn't materialize as we thought they would be. So we were working with a company that is going to buy those back and replace those with the diesel buses we need. So that's 4. We're going to get 4 to replace ones that are not really operational now. And in this budget before the reduction there was 4 additional, that would be 8. So we're taking out of this budget 2 of those to bring it down to 6. But we're counting on end-of-year funds, which we believe there'll be enough money to buy the other 2 that came out of this. So it will be a total of 8 for the next school year.
That's all I have for this one.
Okay, we can go around. Dr. Roundtree?
No questions at this time.
Great. Ms. Purcell?
So in the organizational chart that we just approved, there's an elimination of a position that is still factored in the detailed budget.
Is that a question?
Yeah, so just how does that work?
Well, that's a really good question. It's still in the detailed budget because the board didn't vote on the organizational chart yet, so I didn't want to be presumptive and make changes that were not there. So the positions that we looked at adding and the org chart that we had mentioned that we have to redefine exactly what those names are and the specific duties will come from those monies that will not be needed in that position. It'll almost be exactly enough. There may be some other we have to find from other areas, but we will do that.
Ms. Vaughn?
Well, I'm gonna, kind of ask my normal about the Wimmer annual lease. Are we, is that a maybe next year thing? Are we gonna be able to work on that
That's a really good question. We're actually working on right now getting what a price would be to do that paving outside the operations center. And I didn't want to speak publicly about it because I don't have the numbers yet, but we do have money in our capital reserve account to do that. So before we make any discussion about whether we could get rid of that property where we're storing the buses now and the Wimmer lease that we currently now have a lease for, I want to bring it to you as a proposal. But that is one of our long-term plans, to make that larger area right now that's kind of grass or hay, whatever you put down there, make that other area paved area. Then we could probably in total put about 70 buses in that entire place together, and we have about 120 total. So speaking with our transportation coordinator, that'll work for us, and we won't need to store them anywhere else. And some will be stored at the schools as they are now, which works, and some people take them home, which works as well. So I don't have that all wrapped up in a bow to provide to you, but we plan on doing that with your approval.
Do it. Good enough for me.
Okay, so Ms. Bond stole my thunder. That's what I was going to ask, and I'm glad to hear your response, Dr. Bragan. I think that's something that we really need to think about hard at looking at doing as soon as possible for that parking. Am I remembering correctly? Was that already in with what we had done at the operations center initially in the past budget, where that was added in for the parking, for the paving and all of that? Was that already figured into the budget or not?
Those monies were included in the original budget.
Okay.
That's why we do have some monies left in the reserve account, because they weren't used.
I couldn't remember. I thought that it was. So thank you for working on that and everything else. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Guidry.
Yeah, one initial question here. The auto time system increase, there's a significant difference in the budget and the reduction there. What are the implications of that reduction?
Yeah, well, that was a rough estimate on one of the companies that they were looking at in the finance department using to get that automated time system. And since we've been working with ADP to help us, since our payroll supervisor left somewhat suddenly, one of the conversations we had was not only paying our employees twice a month, which we are definitely moving towards. I can't give you an exact drop dead date, but right now the triage is we want to just make sure everybody gets paid, right? And then we're going to look to moving forward. But in those conversations, we talked about the electronic timekeeping. They have a product, they can do it, and they could do it for $100,000 less than we budgeted. So when it came time to look at this and find the $902,000, that was an easy one.
Thank you.
Okay, board, any other questions or comments? Guess I'll just share. I appreciate all the work. Obviously, we didn't get everything that we asked for, so you had to find room for it. I appreciate those changes not coming from salaries, because I know that's important, right? Obviously, we have needs all over the place, and you had to make hard decisions there, but I feel like the decisions you made were smart, and I appreciate the efforts on that.
Thank you. Your mic's off, Penny.
I wasn't sure what you were asking for comments on. Was it the whole budget or just the specific reduction? Because I have some concerns about the detailed budget with some of the areas.
You're free to share them now. I mean, our next topic would be a vote for the overall budget, so we're going to have a discussion anyway, so feel free to share it now if you want, or you can wait until we...
Well, I'll wait.
Okay. All right, great, board. The operating budget for 2024-25 is presented for board approval. Do I have a motion to approve the 2024-25 operating budget as presented?
So you're wanting us to approve a budget before we have discussion on items that board members may question with the details budget?
And we can do it either way. I mean, we can...
No, we can't do it either way.
Well, you can
Because,
have discussion
But you were
once a
asking
motion's
for-
on the table. We're going to have a vote tonight regardless. It's a matter of whether you want to have the discussion before the motion's on the table or while it's on the table, but
So we just started talking about the budget, and then we went straight to a vote before, when I was asking the question, when do we talk about the details? But then it's like, let's vote on it before we talk about the details.
Well, we've had the detailed budget. This is the third board meeting where we've had the budget, the detailed budget.
Well, I don't recall that after February 20th, when we asked for more details, that we talked about the budget, and once the supervisors approved what they were going to do, we haven't talked about what the board where the board would like to see the cuts be made. So this is now that we need to talk about this before we vote on a budget, because we may have different priorities of where we feel the money should be allocated or.
okay, feel free to talk about it now. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter, but if you want to discuss it before we have a motion, that's fine. We always have a discussion while a motion's on the table as well, so.
Okay, I'm trying to get back to the right budget. Okay. So if we go to page 14.
You're on the detailed budget, Penny?
Detailed budget, yeah. That's the right one. Yes. So I've been asking this question for over a year, ever since this position was created, and that's the Dean of Students. And I'm not exactly sure what this page represents because it's additional dean of students. Now, this was an ESSER position and the funding went away, so now we're rolling it into the budget. And because of how it's being filled right now, I was told that eliminated any kind of benefit contribution that was being made, so it was saving us money because basically it's kind of seen as an assistant principal. So I'm not sure where I have additional dean of students, and then we come down under, BRS increase, addition of dean of students, and then health insurance include benefits, additional dean of students. I'm not sure what's happening with that position.
Two questions. On the position, it is a person who's retired who's currently doing that position now. And that's why the salary is less than it would typically be for an assistant principal level. And the feedback we heard is that position has been pretty effective. Now, the detailed budget was done before I took over finance. And what it looks like to me there is that they just took every position and they added 5% salary increase, and then they added the benefits increase as part of that as well. So that may be one that is not necessarily needed in that position, and we could look at that.
Okay, so I still don't understand why we needed dean of students to fill an assistant principal's position when at that building, at the time this was created until recently, there were 3 assistant principals and a principal. And quite frankly, I think the change in the leadership in the building had much more to do with the dean of students than the dean of students did or is. We have needs in other buildings where an assistant principal is needed, could be helpful, but yet we're paying someone almost $70,000 when we could be developing or bringing in an experienced assistant principal. And I don't understand that at all.
I understand your position. There was 3 positions there. One was totally ESSER's funded. And we did have a situation last year where we thought the support was needed, and we put that position there, and it's been effective this year. So moving forward, outside the ESSER's position, there'll be a funded principal position and 2 assistant principals. And we do feel that the person doing that job has been really effective, and I think it's an appropriate use of those funds, which is less than it would be for an AP. But if you feel otherwise, you're more than welcome to vote no. That was my recommendation when we talked about positions, and we did a few months ago. And if you feel that way now, that's your position. I understand it. That's not my recommendation, though.
That's why the board decides how our budget is supposed to look as a board and what would be most effective for the district.
Well, I understand that, and I make recommendations, and you're one member of the board, and you all 7 of you vote on it collectively.
That's right. So I'm voicing my opinion again about that. I also, and I can't remember exactly what page it's at, but our tiered intervention folks, these folks are key to helping to support our students, our administrators, and our teachers. And now we are down to 3 to cover the whole district. I don't understand that at all when we're paying someone almost $70,000 to be in one building when we could have support in several buildings increased. In fact, one of those positions I was told was not going to go away because one was funded by ESSER's funds and that a person was retiring and that position would just roll over into that. Now that position has been eliminated and that person is not rolling over. I'm not sure what's happening with that position.
Yeah, the TIS positions and that position of the Dean of Students they're totally different issues.
It's support for the buildings, right?
Yeah, it's support for students overall, but we also have additional supports and additional school counselors that we put in across the division that have a larger role than the TIS position, and we also have grant funds that we're getting additional counselors across the division that we think will do a great job in providing those supports. And we don't think that the current structure of the TISs is needed any more than what we've already included in this budget.
So that's another one we'll disagree on. When we get down to page 49, and it has, let me get to page 49. It's a lot of information, so I appreciate that. It's just kind of difficult the way it's formatted to put it all together sometimes. So under others, administrative professionals and other school supply support, what is that? Who are these positions?
I get you that information off the top of my head. I don't remember that, so I don't want to misquote it. But I get that and I'll email it to you.
We also have received an email from our registered aides as far as benefits and the number of hours that they put in versus our paraprofessionals, which is 30 minutes less, but they are not receiving retirement benefits. So I remember when we were looking into the benefits, there was something that the Virginia Board of Education had some of our aides in a different category, so they weren't eligible through VRS for retirement benefits. Is that what's still going on here?
That's what's going on now in this school year, but in the recommended budget and the pay plan, those registered aides are going to receive VRS, and we did make that change.
Okay, so where is that at?
Where is it?
Yeah,
It would be in the pay plan. That's after the budget when we approve it.
okay. So,
It's in one of the next items down.
right, but wouldn't it be part of the budget too?
Yeah, we tied in those salaries. That was reflective in the budget.
Can you tell me where that's at?
Off the top of my head, I cannot. You know, it's 70-something pages, and if I had the questions in advance, I'd be able to give you all that answers, and I can give them to you later, but I can't pull it off the top of my head right now.
Okay, well, sometimes we don't get stuff in advance to be able to,
Understood?
or we get stuff late, so we're not able to figure out what we're actually looking
No, I
at.
totally understand. We did share this on Friday.
But the reductions did not come until after 10 o'clock last night. Okay, that's all I have for right now.
Okay, board, any other questions about the detailed budget?
I have a question.
Yep.
To the point about the dean of students, when we first discussed the budget, I didn't quite understand the SR positions. And I know that, BMS has been asking for more assistance, and I know that's a separate issue. But I remember when Ms. Showalter, I heard when she was moved, it was because that position was being eliminated, you've got to move. But that's the way it was presented to me. I didn't actually hear that from her, but just that position was being eliminated. And so I know that people have said that dean's position has been very effective, but organizationally, if the APs and the leadership in that building is doing what it's supposed to be doing or is effective, then why would you need the dean of students? Why do you need this extra position that has a very limited responsibilities when we have hardworking APs across this division? And that's $100,000 in our budget. So in addition to the salaries, we're looking at the benefits. That's a lot of money. And so just to Ms. Franklin's point, I think, that's one of the things that I just have questions about. And the fact that we need to cut $1 million from the budget.
It's a point worth looking into, and I understand your position. And, what we tried to do when we cut these, as I said in the beginning, that we didn't cut any positions or any salaries from what we had proposed and we had voted on previously and approved, that is, the school board did approve the budget prior to this reduction. And we had those discussions. If the efficacy of that position is questioned as we move forward, then we'll reassess and we'll see if it's worthy of what the costs are. At the time, it was definitely worthy of the cost. And as the chief academic officer and school leader, I recommended it because we needed it, and it made a difference. Whether people disagree with me or not, that's okay. That's just my opinion, and that's what I've heard from the school community and the leadership there. If over time, after this year, we reassess it, we think we don't need it, I understand that too. I also understand the difficulty of the ESSERS funded positions. I can't go back in time, but you know, where I came from when we got that ESSERS money, I didn't fund any positions because I knew they were going away. And at some point, we're going to look at a fiscal cliff and be associated with, all right, I have to look someone in the face and tell them they're no longer employed here, or come to you and say, hey, I need $10 million more to keep these positions. That wouldn't be what I would have done, but I wasn't here, so I can't comment on that. But moving forward, and as you said, Dr. Guitry, if at some point we assess the situation at Blacksburg High School and realize that, hey, maybe they need another assistant principal, we'll do that. You know, the move was precipitated, I don't want to mention a name, but during the school year, because we knew that position was going to go away from ESSERS funding, and at the time, there was a vacancy in another school where she transitioned in, and as a team player, she did a great job for us.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning the decision to move her. It's just in terms of converting ESSER funded positions into permanent positions, it wasn't clear to me the rationale. And and I know that we discussed the budget before, but we also are talking about how to reduce the budget. So that was one item that I had questions about. Could we possibly reduce the budget because it's 100,000? But it's no direct critique of you, certainly your decisions.
So I do have to agree with Dr. Bragan. CMS has been issues for several years. It's been a disaster. It has finally gotten under control, and part of that is due to the great administration, but as well as the Dean of Students, who has a lot of experience with students, and a lot of our students trust him and feel comfortable with him. So I think these were grant funded at one time, and then we made them permanent. And I do want to point out that even though that is a salary we're paying, I don't believe, Dr. Bragan, that we're paying that position benefits. Am I correct?
That's correct. No health benefits or VRS.
So there is a savings with that particular position that we are not paying benefits for. It is just a straight salaried position with no benefits.
Social Security and Medicare we got to pay.
Yes. And I also have heard from teachers and students, as well as parents, that that position has made a difference in that school.
Ms. Vaughn? Okay. I do want to clarify something I think I heard you say earlier. So that current position as Dean of Students, if that was an AP instead, would that be a higher paid position?
Yes.
Are we saving money by having that position as a Dean of Students?
It would be higher paid, and it would also require more benefits and VRS contributions, yes.
Got it, right.
Well, I'll just say, according to the budget that's here, it looks like those benefits have been figured in.
And
That was part of my question.
That was the first question you asked me, and the detailed budget, when it was put together, was done before I was in charge of finance. And I can't speak to why they would do that, knowing that wasn't the case. But we can adjust it moving forward.
So this position keeps being talked about as permanent. As I recall, during our last budget discussions in February, this position, it's intended for it to be one more year and ending after next year, not continuing into the following school year. Is that still the plan, or is this a permanent position?
You know, permanent's a relative term. Nothing in the school budget is permanent because every year we have to look at what we have and what we allocate our resources. I think what I heard clearly from this board and the discussion was we would have to assess the efficacy of that position and determine whether that monies were worthwhile to be spent in place of an assistant principal, either at that location or another one, is what I heard. So I think, in answer to your question, Dr. Roundtree, yeah, it's it's something we would reassess when we come to this time. Well, not this time, when we come to the budget planning season next year, whether we want to continue that or not.
Ms. Purcell?
I mean, I think we have a pretty good body of evidence that some kind of similar support is needed at Blacksburg Middle School and/or Blacksburg High School, just given the population and the issues that administrators are dealing with there and how very, very spread thin that they are. So, again, kind of building off of something Dr. Roundtree asked for earlier, I think we do need some kind of audit of what people are doing and where, as far as roles, and what's falling through the cracks and where extra support is needed, because I think the professionals in those buildings every day are doing everything that they can to keep it together, and it's grinding them down, and they're leaving, and I think that's something that we need to try to prevent.
I do agree. We'll take a look at all that.
I mean, one thought might be, depending upon how we look at it, like maybe it's not a matter of eliminating that position. Maybe we need more positions like that across our schools. Like, again, seeing the roles and responsibilities would be useful. Like what roles does a dean of students have that's different than an AP? If it's truly just focusing on discipline kinds of things, then maybe we want more of that, right? To take some of that burden off of our APs and allow them to do other things. I'm not sure. Just
No, it's great points, but I think, and I'll go back to when this started. The budget development started in November and December in meeting with building principals, looking at projected enrollments, looking at staffing that they would need for teaching staff, looking at support staff. They came with me with these recommendations. I didn't just make these up. And some of the things for the schools that were mentioned were not necessarily assistant principal, the requests were, they were school counselors. And we're adding school counselors in this budget to those schools. And we also secured a grant through Dr. Guidry's advice. We were able to get a grant for almost because of the incident that happened in November and a traumatic reaction for that. I forget the exact name of the grant. But when that comes to fruition, that's going to provide additional school counselors. So we're fortunate that the support that we have there, from what I heard from the team and the staff, wasn't necessarily APs, but it was counselors to be preventative with kids. And that's in place already. If we need others, we'll assess that too as well.
Okay. Ms. Purcell, do you have anything else?
Not now, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Roundtree, do you have anything else?
Just a restatement of a nice audit of the administration at each individual school, and the roles of those administrators would be a benefit to the board, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Ms. Franklin?
Yes, I'm pulling up the email with the reductions. So, the equipment. What equipment are we talking about reducing?
The operational equipment and services was going to be for maintenance and operations, and we're reducing that slightly by $52,339.
Okay, and this is one of the areas where we heard very clearly from our employees that they needed help. It was with equipment, not just bodies, but with equipment. And I'm going to go back to that dean of students and what was happening at Christiansburg Middle School. And I've said this before, that building was not getting the support that it needed. I raised that question through 2 administrations now. And then when things really got awful bad, because things weren't being addressed in that building, the dean of students appeared. we now have a very capable administrator in that building. Part of the issue in this district as a whole is when it comes to developing our APs, there is not a lot of support. We have a lot of folks who are put in those positions, and it's kind of like, okay, here you go. And they feel that way, because I've heard it. And at Christiansburg Middle School, we had that situation also, and we had new administrators who just were not able to handle what was happening in that building after we reopened after COVID. And the support was not put in that building. We had an administrator who was out for a long period of time, and they were kind of left to flounder a lot. So things did get really bad. And I don't believe that putting a dean of students in that building is continuing to make the impact that everyone thinks it's making. I believe it's the leadership in that building, especially now that it's starting to turn it around, like implementing a no cell phone policy. So I do believe, and will always say at this point, unless someone can truly prove to me something different, that those funds can be used elsewhere in our budget. And we need to focus more on helping to support our principals and assistant principals develop skills needed when we run into any kind of situation. And that was something that was brought up several years ago related to making sure that we had support for our administrators and growing the best that we could. Because I think someone said folks are burning out and looking for other places where they might be able to get more support. And in many cases, so they could get that support so they're able at some day to become principals. And many of them don't feel like they're getting that.
Okay, board, any other comments? Okay. So that being said, now we move on to the operating budget item of the agenda. Operating budget for 2024 is presented for board approval. Do I have a motion to approve the 2024-25 operating budget as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Ms. Parton and Ms. Bond.
So I have another question. Because there's still information I know that I want as far as figures and what exactly the decreases represent. And what's before us is the details of a 2024 budget and not what the figures broken down like this look like in a 2025 budget. Is there anything that would say we need to vote on this tonight before we have more figures to be able to make a decision?
I'm not sure what figures you're asking for. This is the 24-25 budget.
The detailed budget, the way it is presented, quite frankly, it's hard for me to tell exactly what's what, just like in slide 14. What does that mean? And how does that affect the budget? Are there other areas in here that we need to be looking at differently because of the way things may have been presented in February versus what we're operating under now here?
This was exactly the way it was presented in February. It's the exact same detailed budget with just the changes for the $902,339.
Exactly. But again, just like in slide 14, there are some corrections that probably need to be made that would make the budget look differently. I don't know what type of equipment we're talking about decreasing. I still have some questions related to the tiered intervention specialist, because I was told one thing, and then that didn't happen, and positions were eliminated because of ESSER funding, where other positions under ESSER funding are just rolled into the budget.
Nothing was rolled into anywhere, just so you know. I don't know who's telling you things, but
yeah.
I'm speaking, please, Ms. Franklin. I didn't cut you off.
Specialists.
The stuff that we shared with the full board, I shared with all the positions. I went over with everyone. We went over a detailed budget. We explained items. We explained where the additions were. We explained everything. And the questions that came up then, I answered what I could and what we could as a team. And those that we didn't answer at the time, we followed up with emails and provided that information. So the information in this budget, what I'm asking right now is, our initial increase was reduced by $902,339. If you don't want to vote on it, don't vote on it. If the whole school board doesn't vote on it, that means we don't have a budget, okay? So y'all can put that out there when teachers want to know why they don't have contracts moving forward. It's because you didn't vote on it. That's up to you. This budget was done effectively. It's done with the best interests of the division. It's done with the whole division in mind, not one or two people talking and saying things that may or may not be accurate. And vote on what you want, but to say that this somehow is misrepresented or it was changed, that's just not accurate.
So my statement was not that it had been changed, is that the information that is in portion of this budget does not reflect exactly what it's supposed to show as far as contributions for retirement, contributions for benefits. This budget is the school board's budget. And Ms. Bond will recall when we had a school board budget and we had to make reductions, then the board had input as to where those reductions would be, because it's also our responsibility to manage this school district. So if we do or do not take the recommendations from the superintendent, is of the board. And as a board member, I have every right to make my comments and ask my questions related to the budget. And if that does not align with what you would like us to do, then I don't know what to say to you about that, because I'm going to make the comments and give my input about the operating budget, capital budget, and any other funds that are spent in this district. So,
I appreciate it. I never said you didn't have a right to comment on it.
if I, as one board member, choose to not just rubber stamp and want to see the figures and how everything will be affected and what equipment, for one, that will be reduced from a group of people who have begged us that we need equipment, and $52,000 cut in an area where, you know, it's been stated clearly, we have old stuff, stuff that doesn't work, stuff that's shared between buildings. Come on now. I think we can do something different there.
For clarity's sake, nothing's being cut. It's being increased $300,000. There's nothing being cut. It's less of an increase.
If we've got almost $1 million that we had to reduce in the budget, and you sent us information about where the reductions were going to be, 52,000 of that was in equipment. So yes, there is almost $1 million that's being removed from the budget that we sent forth in February, which is, as you keep saying, is what's in front of us.
$1 million less of an increase. Nothing is cut. That's a distinction that's important.
Okay, so you can say less of an increase, but if these are areas that we put forth saying they needed to be increased, and then we go back and cut them, that's a cut. It's a cut from the original budget that was sent forth to the supervisors. That's a cut.
Okay, board, we have a motion and a second.
And I'm still.
This is an argument, this is not a discussion.
No, I'm addressing what the superintendent has said and making clear what my statements are. And to his point just now is, yes, these are reductions, because this is the budget that was sent forth, as he said. And we had to cut it, and we as board members get to play into how that cuts.
Understand. You've made your point.
Well, evidently not, because I keep getting feedback.
So I have a question, just with the three items that were in discussion about that are on page 14 with the benefit structure there. That I understand that you didn't put them there, they were there prior, but you did say that that would be something that could be adjusted. And I think doing those figures just in quickly, my head, it's almost 33,000. So would that make a difference in like finding the funds on the equipment type usage?
Yeah, I mean,
Down to 20,000 opposed to 50-some thousand.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
I mean, to me,
That's a
that's
good
the
point.
way to kind of.
money is typically, that's a great question, and typically what we're voting on now is the overall anticipated expenditure and revenue, right? That regularly changes. So if you'll see when we come to the Board of Supervisors, we make a supplemental request, so we look to change or move monies from here or there. That's easily done and regularly done. So let's just say it was in personnel, you have, I don't know, $45 million in personnel for teachers' salaries, and over the course of the years, you don't expend all of that.
Sure,
So
things
when you
change,
get,
I understand.
well, when you get to the middle of the year, end of year, you realize maybe I have $1 million extra there. And the maintenance department comes and says, hey, I need a new lift. So we transfer monies and we buy a lift. That happens all the time.
Is that part of the rollover?
It's part of the end of the year funds, but it's also happens during the school year, right? So if, for example, we have a number of custodial positions that have not been filled. So if you look at the custodial line for salaries, we have monies there to that. We've purchased equipment this year, some of the things that were requested and things that you have that flexibility. So in answer to your question, 100%, you don't have to definitively move that now. That would be in there as money as we went through the school year that we realized was unencumbered and unused. At the end of the year, we regularly have money left over, year end.
Right. I was just meaning as far as a black and white.
Yeah,
item.
absolutely.
That would be maybe a switch over to where there's not so much coming out of that black and white item on equipment, because you know you're going to have that right there if that's, you know.
Understood. Could do that.
Okay, so one of the things that happens when you start moving money around, there are different categories, and any savings that come out of one category are supposed to be reused in the same category. You just can't switch them around to categories.
Can I ask one question? So I
But
know
I'm
that you,
thinking if that's not really happening, that's a category that's not there to begin with.
And that's my point, that we should see a budget that truly reflects what the funds are, so that we know what we're talking about.
so I know
To
you,
Ms. Franklin's point, that $32,890 currently is in administrative category. The summary of our, on page 2 of the budget, and it's not still appropriate to move those between those different categories in the middle of the year. So if we're going to approve this budget and that $32,890 for retirement, health benefits, and what was the other category?
VRS.
VRS, health benefits, and then there was a third one. Okay. Then we should go ahead and move them. I mean, we can move those today with a motion with an amended motion to move those $32,890 to equipment, and then that's in our operations and maintenance budget. And our operations and maintenance budget goes up by that amount. The administration budget goes down by that amount.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the board is
Want to
comfortable
make
doing
that
that tonight.
motion? Or adjust the motion?
I make a
before you-
motion that we adjust those figures.
can I ask the question now before you make that motion? So I know that you had to you initially had a 5% inflation for across the board with the budget. How much is it reduced now because I could, you removed the percentage from the budget, so I couldn't tell what the inflation is built into the budget now.
The original amount was 465,386. That was the increase. So that increase is now reduced to 165,386. That's for supplies across the division that was just increased by that initial amount.
Yeah, as I recall from February, it was an 8% increase for inflation, and you're reducing it to a 5% increase.
We reduced it to 5. 5 is the number that was there. It's going to be less than 5 now for those supplies.
Okay.
But again, that's less of the increase.
Okay, so just to get my parliamentary procedures correct, we have a motion and a second on the table. So I think what has been proposed is that we modify those motions to include the movement of that 30K-ish from the unneeded benefits lines over to help compensate for that equipment. So I think what we need is the original person who made the motion, which was Ms. Parton, to accept that friendly amendment to your motion.
Accepted.
And the second, who I believe was Ms. Bond, to also accept that. Okay, so now our motion on the table is to approve the budget as is with the addition of moving that 30K-ish. 32,890, thank you. From personnel to instruction, over to operations and maintenance to help offset some of those operational equipment and services reductions. Oh, is it? Yes, that would make sense on administration and health, wouldn't it?
So the motion is to make that adjustment.
Yes. So we're going to approve the budget with the inclusion of that change to move those benefit monies over to help plus back up the operational equipment and services
Well,
increase.
since there was a motion, don't we need to approve the motion to make the move and then approve the budget?
Yeah, so the folks who made the motion
Oh, okay,
amended their motion.
okay.
Now, the board can still choose to not approve their friendly amendment, right? And then we can keep going, but. Okay, so we're still in the discussion period with a motion on the table and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
No, I don't have the information I need.
Dr. Gitchery,
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. We have a budget. All right. All right, next up, the school nutrition budget for 2024 is presented for board approval. That was in our board docs. Do I have a motion to approve the 2024-25 school nutrition budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Guthrie and Ms. Purcell. Any discussion? Okay. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes,
Dr. Gitchery, Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Next up, the pay plan for 2024-25 is presented for the board's approval. Do I have a motion to approve the 2024-25 pay plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Purcell and Dr. Roundtree. Any discussion, board?
I'm just really pleased that we're moving toward better equity for all of our positions, and I really appreciate the ongoing advocacy of past board members to get there. Veteran sitting board members.
No, we weren't able to make all the changes that maybe we've discussed and we've gotten emails about and all those things. Certainly, it all takes money, but I do think we've made some big steps in the right direction with this one, and we'll continue to strive to make improvements in the future. Board, any other comments? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. Next up, Adam Simpson, our Director of Secondary Education, will present the textbook adoption timeline for science elective courses and the proposed division textbook evaluation committees for board approval.
Good evening, school board members, Dr. Bregan. So the timeline in front of you, you've had for a few weeks, and the addition this week is the committees for each of the courses. So we're just seeking your approval for those committees so the teams can move forward with the adoption process.
Board, any questions or comments for Mr. Simpson?
I just have one really quick question. Thank you for doing this. One of the critiques I had heard before about some of the committee makeup was that the administration was kind of double dipping in counting employees also as parents. Was all these parents just bona fide parents and not also MCPS employees? I just remembered hearing that critique in the past, that they weren't, that they were kind of double dipping.
So you're asking me about the parents. I believe one of the parents is an MCPS employee.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, board? Go around if we need, unless everybody's good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Do I have a motion to approve the textbook committee as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Dr. Gitchery. Board, any other discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Next up, the work of the third grade standards-based report card committee will be presented by Steve Sizemore, our Director of Elementary Education. Informational only, no action expected.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Bregan. Tonight, I'm here to update the work of the committee of the third grade standards-based grading committee. We want to look at the what, the why, the who, where, and the when for this committee. What is standards-based grading? Breaks down large subjects into smaller pieces that teachers can assess for students to show mastery. It measures certain skills that the student will need to move forward and have foundations built upon to be successful academically. Traditional grading approach here in MCPS versus standard-based grading. Currently in grades 3 through 5, we use the traditional grading system. Next year, third grade will move up to the standard-based grading system. And you can see there the grading key is numbers above standard, meet standard, approaching standard, and below standard. And when you get to the report cards, examples that you can look at and that we have pieces of, you can see the shaded areas, they're not graded during those quarters or those time periods. Why do we implement standards-based grading? Research continues to reinforce that standards-based grading provides the most accurate description of student academic performance, and it creates an easier pathway and highway to communication between parents, teachers, and with their students included. Standards-based grading also, in comparison to traditional grading systems use a percentage base. They focus on quizzes, homework, essays, often include extra credit, zeros, group scores, and the overall grade is full of a lot of things that are oftentimes hard to define. Standards-based grading focuses on learning goals and growth according to the standards. What skills have the students grown in to master the expectations? There's no zeros or extra credit. Items are measured for just one student, and it's based on the most recent evidence of learning. So if you're emerging and you're not quite making the standard, you have an opportunity to look at it again, to be remediated, and to move forward and master that standard or skill. The pros, of course, for standards-based grading are it's more engaged and it deepens the learning and understanding. Students have a better idea of where they are and what they need to do to move forward, which in turn gives the teacher better data and offers parents more insight as to what the student is learning. The cons, teachers experience an increase in workload at the beginning of implementation. Our committee team has done a lot of that work. Our curriculum admins definitely pitch in, and then during the curriculum meetings next year, they'll go through and look at assessments and try to create a cohesive measurement system across the division that teachers can use. Another con is students and families may resist moving from the familiar traditional system, but in our school system, grades K1 and 2 have already implemented. So in third grade, a lot of the team members came back and said, parents are asking us, why is the report card different? Why aren't we having these conversations? 4-way standards-based grading improves instruction. Instruction is more relevant, teachers provide more effective feedback, and grades have deeper meaning. Expectations are more clearly articulated. It can help parents know their student and know that it's being assessed objectively, takes the guesswork out of where they might need support, and grades have more meaning for students, teachers, and parents. Who's implementing an MCPS? Third grade teachers will be joining K through 2 teachers. I think we should just sort of take a moment and just acknowledge the people that worked on this committee. The committee came with open hearts, open minds, took the information back to the schools, communicated with their staff, communicated with their principals, and then came back with ideas, open forum, safe place to have real discussions, and we walked through it. They were very, very critical in making this creative and collaborative. Here are the examples. This is where we have standards-based grading, kindergarten, first and second grade currently. Those are snips from the report cards. If you click on the red link, you can see the whole report card. And then next year's third grade report card is going to be implemented. When will we do it? Next year. Third grade will join kindergarten, first and second. And you can see I put the committee meeting dates on there so that we could understand what the process looks like. And according to Tomlinson and McTee, a grade should give us as clear a measure as possible of the best the student can do. Any questions?
Board, any questions? Who wants to start?
I have a question.
Hey.
So I use rubrics all the time.
Nice.
And they're great.
Yes, sir.
Are teachers going to have to create rubrics for every assignment? Like, I know that there's going to be more work involved. How much more work is going to be involved?
Absolutely not every single assignment. I mean, some of that's created, some of it exists. The curriculum teams will work together. Third grade will come together in each curriculum and build those. We also will share throughout the district.
So teachers won't be creating their own rubrics for their classrooms, but there will be curriculum, there'll be rubrics given to them that they need to use for their.
Assessments and rubrics, yes, from the curriculum team that meets monthly with curriculum administrators. They can create their own rubrics and share out.
Okay, so that means that all the teachers are going to be using the same curriculum and using the same rubric for their classes. It's all going to be standardized with the shift to this grading scheme.
Not completely standardized, but more closely aligned.
Okay, I'll let other people, thank you.
Thank
Let
you.
other people ask questions.
Ms. Pardon? Ms. Bond? Ms. Purcell?
So I assume there's plans to then roll this up to 4th and 5th grade? Is the plan for it to be across the entire elementary?
I believe that is something we've talked about and is the plan. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Dr. Roundtree?
And the intention would be to stop at 5th grade, or would it be going any higher than that?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
To Ms. Purcell's point.
Oh, yes.
The intention would be to stop at elementary, not go on into middle school with the.
Certainly from my perspective, it would be to stop at 5th grade, but I think in my opinion, I think there should be exploration for middle and high school as well.
And then the grade report card for 3rd grade is a draft. It looks like there's some portions filled out.
We're waiting on the ELA curriculum so that we can finish that top part on the top right, and we'll gray out some of the areas there.
Okay, but like mathematics, for example, says adds and subtracts whole numbers within 1,000, but then there's no growth in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Is that just they're supposed to get some number of them? I'm familiar with the kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade version of this, and there tends to be a growth in it's suggested that they'll be able to do, like count to 100, for example.
Then 110,
It's
120,
counting.
150.
Exactly.
Yeah, this one, that's the benchmark that they work together to decide, and that's what they would need to get to. And once they got there, they wouldn't need to be assessed officially on that again. What they would do is probably revisit it to just make certain that it's still there.
Okay, so if there's no growth benchmark in the description, then the cells there to the right for Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 are just for reevaluation of the Q1 results.
Possible reevaluate, yeah, yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Franklin? Turn your mic on. Thanks.
Dr. Gentry's question about consistency.
Yes, ma'am.
Consistency across the matrix that are going to be used. And you said,
So the standards come from the SOLs. So the teachers will meet in their curriculum teams during the year with the curriculum administrators. They'll build the matrix for looking at the standards. They've already had those discussions with this committee, and they'll build on that and all teachers in that grade level will have access.
okay, but it'll be consistent across the district.
Should be very consistent, yes, ma'am. Doesn't mean that if you have a student that has other needs and other assessment needs, that we wouldn't be able to meet those.
Right. I really like the piece of how it won't be as a whole, and individual students you'll be able to identify what areas that they need the help in, and not just say, okay, here we go, and I didn't quite get that piece of this science portion or this math, and be able to help that student so they're not getting behind when it comes to the next level.
Yes, ma'am. So if you don't know, if your student doesn't know the skill, the teacher really can hone in on that.
Right.
And instead of saying you failed a test, they can say, hey, let's build on this. This is what we need to get to. And then you can have real strong conversations at home, possibly, or whoever else may be supporting that child. But definitely in the classroom, it targets what they need.
Yeah.
And it shows what they've learned.
Because I can remember not getting this, and everything moved on, and I still didn't get it, and it wasn't any going back.
And things built on weak foundations don't stand.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess my question is, did a great job at kind of explaining the overall concept and stuff. I guess why now with third grade? Like why weren't we always doing it? What was the impetus for making this change now, and why not fourth and fifth?
I don't know the answer to that, but what I would suspect is MCPS is a little late coming to this party because it's not something you just jump into. You really need to explore it. You really need to be solid with, your research and understand, how do we make this work for everybody? I believe Dr. Wickham in my position worked on K1 and 2 and really laid the groundwork. So when I get here to 3, people are sort of clamoring for it. Not everybody, but a lot of parents love that dialogue. So that's what I suspect.
Board, any other questions? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, the ELA textbook adoption. ELA elementary curriculum adoption was provided to the board for first review on April 16th. Updated information was provided on May 7th. Best and final quotes were requested, and those updates are presented here tonight. Tricia Metzel, the Administrator of ELA and Reading Intervention, and Steve Sizemore, Director of Elementary Education, are available to answer any questions.
Board Chair, could I comment before you guys have discussion?
Yes, please.
This is a difficult topic of discussion, as you all know from our board meetings and just working throughout the division and talking with teachers and staff members, administrators, elementary teachers, reading teachers, special ed teachers. And when we got down to the 2 different curriculums, Benchmark Advance as well as the Amplify, we're pretty divided. Like, it wasn't 100% one way or the other for any group of people across the division. So as the committee came up, they went back and forth, and they came with a recommendation, which wasn't 100% where the teachers were. And I went back and forth and tried to get information from individuals kind of off the record. Hey, what do you think? You're thinking somebody would say, hey, Bernie, man, Amplify, you got to go 100%, or Benchmark, you got to stick with it. And I got both. Kind of got it from all sides. So here's where I landed. I'm going to weigh in, and then I'll just step out of the conversation, is that 2 things. No matter what we select tonight or what the board chooses, and it is the board's choice, we're not going to please 100% of our staff. There's going to be a percentage of people that are going to be, this wasn't the number one thing that I picked or I chose, which we understood that going in. But I think more importantly, what the second piece of that is, our teachers are really good, and they're committed to doing all they can for our kids to succeed, especially when it comes to the area of literacy skills and reading. So I'm confident that no matter what we pick, the expertise and capabilities of our teachers are going to do the right thing, and they're going to do what's best for our kids, as they always do. And I might have made a joke to a few people when we were having these conversations that the short vowels haven't changed. And they're not going to change with Benchmark, with Amplify, with Open Court, whatever you use. And like a piece of chalk is only as good as the person who holds it, right? So the curriculum, I'm not trying to downplay that it's important, but it's nowhere near as important as the instruction we get from our staff. So weighing all that in and taking in all that information, I would recommend that we go at Amplify. And when you look at the prices and you go back and forth, one is $424,000, one's about $1.2 million. They're both over 6 years. The reason Amplify costs more is because we don't have all the support materials and stuff there already that we do for Benchmark. And when you break it up over time, if we were going to do that with Benchmark and we didn't already have their materials that we got for the last 4 years, that would be almost the exact same price. And paying it over 4 years, it's within our budget. We could do it from a textbook perspective. And that's my 2 cents. Now I'll step out.
And so in terms of our action tonight, then, I guess we need to approve a recommendation. What recommendation are we approving?
I'm recommending Amplify.
Okay. So is that the ELA elementary curriculum adoption as presented?
Yes.
Okay. Just being clear. Okay. So we'll get the motion on the table, and is there a presentation that's coming tonight? The instructions allude to.
There really isn't a presentation because we kind of did that at the last meeting. The data that I think was important and really came out of the last meeting was the price. And I shared that with all of you in an email, as well as it's on the documents here. When we went back and tried to get an exactly competitive price, comparing apples to apples, and I think that's what we do have now.
Okay. Okay. I guess I'll open it up for discussion prior to the motion, since we did that with the budget.
I just had a question. You were talking about the money being comparable, but the email or what I have here is not at all. Is that, am I looking at?
You're looking at it, right? It's $424,000 for Benchmark Advance, because we have all the materials, well, a lot of the materials we have already, because we've been using Benchmark.
For Amplify?
1.2 million
That's what I
over
thought.
6 years.
Okay, I'm reading it right.
You're 100% right.
That's a lot of money difference.
How much of textbooks are already covered by the state, and how much needs to come from our budget?
Well, the allocation from the state is part of their overall monies that they give us, right? So it's around $700,000 is what we get per year. It's what we got for the last few years, is that we budgeted, and that's what we put in our line item.
Yeah, so that 1.2 million over 6 years is $200,000 in our budget. That's a fairly small percentage. Additionally, the Virginia Department of Education changed the rules on the curriculums. We have to go back and choose a curriculum that meets the new rules of the Virginia Department of Education. It gives us an opportunity. We had a curriculum that early education teachers were not particularly happy with. It was failing, if they had to follow the curriculum to the T, it was failing the students. And me, for one, the curriculum's failing those students when it's being adhered to robustly, and the curriculum is not changing for K-1, 2 significantly with Benchmark Advanced, and therefore I'm going to vote that we need to change it to Amplify and get a curriculum that builds the foundation for our students as robustly as we can, because buildings can't stand on weak foundations.
Kind of going around naturally here, Ms. Franklin?
So I've gotten a lot of input on this, and I was leaning toward Benchmark. But I agree that foundation has to be started very early. So I too am going to Amplify.
Dr. Guidry?
Oh, and
I'm
can I
sorry.
also say I agree with Dr. Roundtree that we need to make sure we're doing what's best for our students. And just because the state says, yeah, gotta do this, you can't do this, we as a district need to decide what we need to help support our students. And if it doesn't fall in click every time with what the state is saying, then we need to do what's best for our students.
Dr. Guidry?
Thank you. So I know that I'm partially to blame for this drawn-out process, and that I asked for this adoption committee, and I feel particularly sensitive to the work that the adoption committee did, and essentially we're overruling that committee this evening with this vote, and so that weighs on me. And one of my one of the reasons for doing that, going through the process, was not only to follow the law of Virginia, but also to help build public trust, because there's been a lot of critique of committees and them not being effective and listened to in the end. It just came up with a calendar committee. And I think my own faith was shaken by some of the information that came out at the last meeting, and I still have questions. I still don't understand why, when there was an opportunity to explain some of the difference between the two quotes, why the board did not receive all of the information that the administration had. Like, I knew that benchmark materials had been purchased prior to that conversation, and I was hoping to hear a more honest dialogue about the investment that had already been made in benchmark. So I would like to know, it doesn't have to be in the context of this meeting, why not just share, why did the administration not share that information with the school board while making the decision? Because that information was shared with the committee and was used to help guide that committee's decision towards benchmark. And so that deliberative process was compromised with providing certain information to that committee, yet withholding it from the school board. And my confidence was shaken in that meeting because there was an opportunity to close that gap, and a decision was made not to close it. So I appreciate that you've listened and to board members and community members about Amplify, but I'm still, that left a mark for me.
Dr. Gitcher, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the candor. I can't speak to motivations for other people and why they did or didn't do things, and I can only, when I find things out after the fact, be reactive, right? I'm not going to defend anything. I can only say this, and I try really hard to be authentic in my word and be forthright with information, and my intention is never to withhold anything. It's one of the reasons we reflected on this and made this decision that I did just before, because I think trust is something once compromised is really hard to get back. So I appreciate that. And actually, the person who pointed this out to us, when we thought we could just extend the 2-year period without going through a complete adoption before you even got on the board, Dr. Gitcher, was Dr. Whitaker, who mentioned that, hey, you got to make sure you go through this as a new adoption. So I give her credit for that words too.
Thank you. I say that because I really value the work of the committee, but I do have to, with that being compromised, do have to support Amplify in the end. I know that there's division, but I agree with some of the other board members of the importance of the foundations, and it's pretty clear from all the feedback that we got that Amplify is better aligned with phonics and VLA for those early years. So I'm going to support it.
Ms. Barton?
Okay. So to me, there's a clear divide between the two. So I've had to do a lot of talking and a lot of reading and a lot of research, and just a thank you to everyone that has shared their thoughts with me. I've had several people send emails, and I have had a chance to read them, but I have not had a chance to respond to them all. So I always welcome community input, parents' input, student input, and of course our faculty and staff's input. There have been concerns about the overruling of the textbook adoption committee and why would we approve a committee, or why approve a committee. And I do know that we will adopt a math, a secondary ELA, and a science over the next 2 years too. So just wanted to throw that out there. As far as me, being a board member, I do take into account our experts, our teachers, who are teaching it, and the ones that I have heard, it's been about 50-50. I've had several for Amplify and several for Benchmark for different reasons. But what I am hearing from my district mainly, and from several experts that I feel are experts that have been with this school system for years and knows about this and knows what's best. I've made sure I've sat down with those people and asked them to give me an honest answer. And I have to also consider that as a board member, I need to be a good steward of taxpayer money. So that is partly on us as a board member. So just throwing that out there too. So I am going to be keeping my vote for benchmark.
Ms. Bone?
Dr. Roundtree, I believe I heard you say that it was a $200,000 difference. Am I looking at something wrong?
No, I said $200,000 a year over the 6 years of the program.
Oh, okay, so that makes it about an $800,000 difference.
Still an $800,000 difference over
Yeah,
the lifetime.
right.
But we already spent $800,000 on benchmark, which is a failing program for our students.
I don't know that it's failing. I'm with Ms. Parton. I've spoke with a lot of seasoned teachers that don't always think like me in other issues. And this is one they kind of rose to the top and said, yeah. And we just had a major dispute over $30,000 or $50,000, but yet we're willing to just think $800,000 is nothing. I have a problem with that. When we don't pay lots of people in our organization what they need to be paid. And I truly believe our teachers do a fantastic job, and I don't believe something that's divided 50% and 50% that we can say one is failing and one is not. What is that saying for our teachers? So I can't agree with that, and I too am going to stick with benchmark just because basically the financial part of it, and I'm sure we won't get the vote, but that's okay because my district knows where I stand on that.
Great, thanks. This has been a bit of an ordeal trying to think back to all the different meetings and presentations we've had. Like, at one point, wasn't there a presentation on student reading achievements in K through 5 using benchmark, and weren't there declines in performance noted in that presentation?
There were declines and increases depending on where you look. Yeah. It wasn't definitively down 100% or definitively up 100%.
Okay, got it, right.
As I recall, Dr. Wickham, you were there. Is that accurate?
No, okay. Yeah, so, yeah. It's hard to just kind of think back to the ordeal that we've gone through with this thing, right? Curriculum adoptions shouldn't be so complicated. And, obviously we've all went through StudySync and all the issues there, but, at the end of the day, we had 2 recommended curriculums at the state level. It shouldn't have been that particularly complicated to make a decision, right? It feels like every step of the way there was something that I felt like this board was not shared information about, whether it was the fact that we needed to even adopt a curriculum or not, whether it was the initial feedback that we got from the schools, like the original surveys, the math associated with those, the individual feedback, and then the more detailed feedback, and then the more detailed feedback, and then the costs, and then it just like, and then, like this is not a model for how you adopt curriculum. So it pains me that it's taken so long. We started these conversations months ago, and I'm sure our teachers would have loved to have been working through whatever the new curriculum was a long time ago, right? But we can't change the past. We are where we are. I would just hope that future curriculum adoptions avoid these pitfalls and run more smoothly. I'm in favor of accepting the superintendent's recommendation on this. Any more discussion?
Yeah, just some comments. Some 50-50 anecdotal evidence of responses from teachers in the community were thrown out there. There was a poll. It was 70-30, not 50-50. That was for teachers. $200,000 roughly is 0.1% of our budget. $400,000 is 0.03% of our budget. We're talking about tenths of a fraction of a percent of our budget. our textbook adoption, our textbook curriculum budget for a year is what, $800,000?
700 and change.
Okay. Yeah, so for one of our major curriculums, we're talking about a quarter of that budget for the next 6 years. I understand not following the committee's recommendation, but we're going against the committee's recommendation. Well, the committee went against the teacher's recommendation as well, and the committee's recommendation was almost 50-50. The teacher's recommendation was 70-30, and there was 160-ish people on that committee, so the statistics associated with that value are much better than the statistics associated with a 30-person committee that is almost 50-50. So while I understand the dollar amounts, when you start throwing the whole lump sum out there is a large number, the percentage of our budget is actually quite small. And taking anecdotal evidence of a 50-50 split when there is hard evidence of a 30-70 split is not appropriate. Thank you.
And with all due respect, I can vote the way I want to vote.
I agree.
And
I'm just putting out factual information.
That's why I am an elected school board official just like you.
But you're not supposed to put out information that is
Did every
not
single
representative.
teacher have a vote in it?
They had the option to.
Okay,
All-
but
But
they
they
didn't.
didn't.
But they didn't.
Doesn't matter.
We
Yeah,
had, what,
every-
400?
Not everybody shows
don't-
up to vote for us either.
Okay,
Okay,
but
okay, let's-
that is something that is also an unfair information put out there. So I think we just need to leave that out.
Oh, we just, wait.
Okay. This is no longer a discussion.
Vote the way you want, the way I want.
That's fine. Okay, board, any more discussion? Okay. Do
I move to accept Amplify as the curriculum for ELA.
That's my job, but that's cool.
What's that?
We have a motion, do we have a second?
He can ask for a motion. I motion.
Yeah. We have a motion by Dr. Roundtree and a second by Ms. Franklin. Any more discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
No.
Franklin? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
No.
Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
5 in favor, 2 opposed.
Motion carries. Okay, board, we are up to our unfinished business item. Are there any items of unfinished business tonight?
Laura, yes, ma'am.
Feels like some unfinished
you.
business we all need to be part of. Okay, any items of new business?
So I don't know if it's new or old, or maybe them probably even not in order related to whatever we decided how the agenda would be prepared. But I think we need to have some more discussion about how things are put on the agenda and when board members can have discussion about items and why we want those on the agenda. Because I feel like I'm being kind of hamstrung, not being able to talk about issues in the district that I feel the board needs to address, or that the community is asking questions about. And I just feel what's happening here is just not good. It's not good for me as a board member, unless I'm going to be called out of order, which I really don't care. But if I have something that I really feel I need to be saying, and right now is, I think we need to maybe revisit this.
So as a reminder, board members can email the chair at any point?
I have, and I haven't seen any items yet, so, or any discussion about when they might be on an agenda.
Okay, that's news to me, but I will go review that. But also, new business is an opportunity to also ask for items to be on future agendas.
As I recall during our board retreat, we actually said during the adoption of our agenda for the day, we could add things to new business to be scheduled for a later meeting. Is that not accurate?
So there are multiple ways. The first is to email it before the preparations to request, and that the chair is supposed to respond to that request if it's pressing, or if you can't get it on the agenda. The other option is at the beginning of the meeting to amend the agenda to discuss it, even in a preliminary way in that meeting. And then we've also, because of tradition in this body, allowed for an open discussion during new business. So there are actually multiple ways for people to put something on the agenda, and all you need is one other vote to amend that agenda. So to Ms. Franklin's point about being hamstrung, all you need is one other person to amend the agenda if you're not satisfied with agenda prep and what's being handed to us on the agenda. So that's what's in our norms and protocols.
Okay, because there was so much discussion at retreat about how you did and how you didn't, when you should. Thanks for that reminder.
Yeah.
Because I have tried the other avenue.
And Ms. Franklin, if you are emailing me things and I am not getting them on the agenda, you kick my butt, because that's my job.
So I sent an email to the chair and vice chair weeks ago. But
I haven't got anything.
I'll follow up with you, and I'll make sure that we get those items clarified and added.
And again, because our meetings can tend to go long, if there wasn't a majority in the past, a majority of the board who really wanted to have a discussion around items or have things brought back, then it didn't come back. And I kind of feel like maybe now anything can be put out there, and a couple of board members can move for things that may not be the pleasure of the board as we move forward as a board. So anyway.
Well, that was the exact discussion we had at the board retreat, and that was in response to comments feeling like people didn't feel like their items were getting on the agenda because it took a majority to get anything on the agenda. Yeah. And so that's where the clarification came. If two of us say, let's get it on the agenda, well, actually, if one of us says, get it on the agenda, and it shows up, it only takes two people to add a motion at the beginning to amend the agenda to take that thing off. So that was the compromise that we had, so that Penny's not getting all of her stuff, Derek's only getting his stuff, Laura's getting all of his stuff. We can work through that together. I mean, I'm trying to be responsive to everybody's wishes here, and that was the conversation we had.
Yeah, I truncated my remarks there. To have a discussion about amending the agenda, you only need a second, but actually to amend the agenda, you need at least 4 votes.
Right.
So that's following Robert's Rules of Order, whereas before it had the term consensus, which could imply that everyone on the board has to approve any addition to the agenda. So whether to remove or to add to the agenda, you still need to have 4 votes if you can't get something on the agenda through the chair.
Right.
So it's not going to be a free-for-all, certainly.
So, and to your point, yeah, items would be brought up under new business to be added, and then it would turn into a discussion. And I myself would be going like, okay, we're supposed to discuss it at another meeting.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I will try a different avenue, and we'll see what happens. If not, I'll be speaking to it again.
Well, and to speak in our chair's behalf, there's been so much. I mean, we're already meeting at 4:30 most Tuesdays till almost midnight, and that's critiquing. Am I wrong by saying, I mean, trying to get, and we know all these things everybody wants on here, but there's been no time, or the whole day's going to be school board meeting. It's getting to where it's just so much, and I think that's a lot of it too. Hopefully, maybe now we're getting caught back up on things, and we don't have to, have so much. But with that being said, I think that's some of the issue too.
Ms. Bond, I appreciate that. I'm not trying to make an excuse. If a board member asks me to put something on the agenda and I don't do that, that's my fault. So I will find those emails, Ms. Franklin, or the text messages, and we'll rectify that. But I do appreciate that. I think that trying to get items on the agenda has been challenging because of the amount of stuff that we've had to do, but that doesn't mean that we're not still going to keep trying. Okay, great. Any other items of new business? All right. Any announcements?
I have an announcement. I would just like to thank everyone who's involved in putting on the graduations this past Friday and Saturday. As the parent of a graduate, I was only able to attend one of them, the Blacksburg High School graduation at Castle Coliseum. I know that the students really wanted it at their school, but weather concerns brought it to Castle. I thought it was a really beautiful ceremony. I really just appreciate so much the hard work that everyone did to make it a great send-off for our students. So thank you.
Yeah, so attending Blacksburg High School graduation was great. Thank you, everyone, for all the amazing work putting on that effort. And then also attending elementary school graduations to bridging into middle school was excellent at Price's Fork Elementary School earlier today, actually.
Yeah, to add on to Dr. Roundtree's comment, I was able to go to Gilbert Lincoln's 5th grade promotion as well, and it was really, really quite special.
Board, anyone else?
Okay, so I'm going to speak for myself and maybe Ms. Bond too. So we got to attend 3 of the graduations this weekend. We attended Eastmont, Christiansburg High School, and Auburn, and it's always a pleasure, and that's the fun part of our job, is watching those kids walk across the stage and with big smiles on their faces, with the parents and the families with big smiles on their faces, and to know that our teachers, our staff, and just everyone in MCPS had something to do with that kid walking across the stage and getting that diploma. So that is always very humbling and prideful for me to be a part of that and watch that. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. Special thank you to Adam for helping us with all the parking. So really, really appreciate that. I know that was a job for you with all of it. So thanks so much, and thanks for everybody else behind the scenes. I know that's a lot to do in 2 days' time, and it went great everywhere. Auburn just missed a huge storm, so they lucked out, but everything went really well, and I think everybody was very pleased and appreciative. So again, it was an honor. It was an honor watching our kids, and like I said, that's the good part about being on the board, is watching our kids succeed and achieve, and it's because of everything you all do every day, and I couldn't be more proud of them and you. So thank you guys so much.
Anyone else?
Happy birthday, Todd.
Today's your birthday?
Happy birthday, Tosh.
And you still showed up? Weird. Wow. All right, great. Next item is upcoming school board meetings. You can see those in board docs. Working on those agendas. All right. Next up, do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss a student matter, a personnel matter, and a legal matter?
So moved. Second.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Purcell. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We are now in closed session.